Hi, my name is Kalyani, and I'm the founder and CEO of Decentology. And today, I'd like to talk to you about composability and how we are unlocking Web3 for JavaScript developers. Let's first start by talking about Web2. In Web2, the success was largely driven by the advent of APIs, application programming interfaces. For instance, if you wanted to integrate payment into your application, you would use Stripe, just a couple of lines of code, and you'd be done. If you want to integrate messaging, you'd use Twilio. Same with storage, you could use AWS, and mapping, you could use Google Maps. Of course, this led to an explosion of APIs, and there are now literally thousands of APIs to do just about anything you want to in Web2 for your application. What this did is made Web2 really open for developers. It became super simple to build applications, and developers could focus on the creativity and the actual use case of the application instead of solving all kinds of ancillary problems. Now, the nice thing about APIs is even though it was open, because there were good standards around it, you could do this. You could build apps that integrated those APIs without compromising security. This was a really important thing because a lot of developers would not adopt APIs if they resulted in their apps becoming unsecure. What this eventually resulted in is the ability for millions of developers to unlock the opportunity of Web2. And what that did was give them a path to income. So today, many web developers are able to build applications and make a livelihood just because they have access to these APIs, and they can take their craft, they can take the knowledge of JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and build fairly sophisticated applications. This is the power of composability. The ability of all these APIs to exist such that any developer with basic JavaScript skills can create very sophisticated applications is a huge unlock and makes so much opportunity possible. Now, let's look at what's happening in Web3. In Web3, there is a tremendous amount of friction for developers. And there's many reasons for this, but the main one is that in order to progress in Web3, today, you need to know how to build smart contracts, which requires fairly advanced skills. You need to learn new languages like Solidity or Cadence or Rust or Go, and these are just really, really hard. In addition, you have to learn new programming paradigms. You need to think like a smart contract developer, which is very different from thinking like a web developer. You have to think about code execution cost, you have to think about security, and more importantly, you have to write this code and make sure it's secure from the get-go, because once you deploy it, it's immutable. You can't go and fix bugs. Now you have to do all this in an environment where the code libraries, because of the nascent and fast-moving nature of the ecosystem, the code libraries are often broken. And to compound things, the documentation is usually incomplete or out of sync with the libraries. So this continues to add a fair bit of friction for developers. And even when you are successful in building smart contract code, what you end up doing is essentially duplicating code that's already been written by other people and deploying that. This is against the ethos of blockchain. The whole idea was that you wouldn't continually deploy the same code again and again. It's not Web2 where there's lots of storage available for cheap. The storage is very expensive. And so when duplicated smart contracts are used, it's really very wasteful of resources. The other thing is, as developers who are just getting into this, who are learning how to build smart contracts, they're building these long monolithic smart contracts, and in the process, creating vulnerabilities, making insecure smart contracts. So this is another problem that developers today face. The biggest problem, I think, is also about smart contract discoverability. The fact that you have created a smart contract that solves a particular problem, it's on chain, it's available, but there's no way for me or any other developer to find about its existence. Maybe if you've written a blog post about it, maybe there's a link in there, we might find about it. But otherwise, it's almost impossible to find existing smart contracts other than the ones that are super popular. And this is all compounded with the situation around auditing. while there is auditing capabilities and auditors available for smart contracts, one of the fundamental problems is that the incentives are misaligned. Auditors today have no accountability. They charge a large amount of money for auditing smart contracts, provide a report, have the developers fix it, but then once the contract is deployed and a future vulnerability is discovered, the auditors have just no accountability at all. So this is a fundamentally broken model. All of these together, all these factors together have created a problem of adoption. Web3 adoption is slow by developers because of all these problems, and we need to fix that. And that's what we are doing at Decentology. Our solution consists of taking the fact that there are a few contract developers who have these advanced skills. So if you look at the broader market, there's a lot of developers who are coming into this marketplace, but there's a few that are already there, who've been there from the beginning and who have advanced skills. So what we want to do is leverage these skills. And what we want to have these developers do is, instead of working on creating monolithic smart contracts, instead create smart contract code that is modular. And in doing this, we also want them to have some standards where they can build in discoverability into these modular smart contracts using metadata. And we want to create a model where auditors are accountable for their work. So they literally have to audit work and stake tokens, stake money, indicating the confidence and trust they have in the code, so that if there is a problem that's discovered in the future, then that money is slashed, that stake is slashed, causing them financial loss. This aligns the incentives between the developers and the auditors. So finally, what we want to do is bring to Web3 the Web2 concept of APIs. As I mentioned earlier, APIs were really very successful in causing an explosion of application development in Web2, the likes of which has never been witnessed before. And we want to reproduce the exact same thing in Web3. Our solution is smart modules. So let's look at what that actually means. So the idea is that instead of developers creating smart contracts that are entire applications, build them as smart modules, which are smart contract building blocks. So each smart module does one thing really well. So if this sounds familiar, it's because it is. So if you look at APIs in Web2, most APIs do one thing really well. And if you want to do something else, you use a different API. So if you bring that model to Web3, that equivalent would be smart modules, which are on-chain smart contracts that are essentially building blocks. So what this can do now is open up opportunity for millions of JavaScript devs and give them the same ability to grow and flourish and thrive in Web3 as they did in Web2. The ability to build decentralized apps that are very complicated does not have to require advanced smart contract skills. We believe that it is possible for JavaScript developers with the skills they have to build complex apps and keep the development process very simple. So you don't have to learn these new languages. You don't have to learn new programming paradigms. You can stick with what you know and continue to have a simple development process, yet build very sophisticated applications. And that's the platform that we are building. And ultimately, we want to make sure that the applications you build are also very, very secure. And that's part and parcel of what we are building into our platform. We want to make sure that the ability for that Web2 unlock for a lot of developers to earn income is also available in Web3. We want to make sure the opportunity that exists for developers with the skills they have with JavaScript to earn a livelihood can be replicated in Web3 also. This is the power of composability. We want to unleash the power of composability that led to so much success in Web2 in Web3. Our solution is called the Hyperverse. It's an open marketplace of community-built, audited, and easy to discover smart modules. So what it does is essentially make it super simple for Web2 devs to build apps without writing a single line of smart contract code. Let's see how that works. So it starts off with the small number of developers who are experienced with smart contract code to build smart modules. So, as I mentioned earlier, instead of having smart contracts that can do lots of things, smart modules are single purpose smart contracts. They're on chain, they're available, they're deployed, and they're ready to use. They're analogous to APIs. So smart module developers build these, and then through a community of registrars, they validate the packages that have been built. For example, we want to make sure that a smart module has the correct metadata for discoverability, that it has documentation, it has examples, it has usage and reference information, and all of those things together to make sure that the package is usable and complete by other developers. Once that's done, then a community of auditors starts taking a look at that code, and they look at the code for security, for vulnerabilities, etc. And if they feel that the code is secure, what they will do is stake tokens as a form of their trust and confidence in that module. This, in effect, acts as an insurance layer for these smart modules. So this has never existed before, and it's a great innovation that we are really, really excited about. The ability to have insurance on open source software and make it so that anyone using this software can trust it. So once this is done, these modules are on-chain. They are available on different blockchains. Hyperverse is a blockchain agnostic platform, and so for different blockchains, there will be different sets of smart modules depending on the use cases that are prevalent for that particular blockchain. But ultimately, the Hyperverse is about a collection of on-chain smart modules that have been reviewed, that have been created by experts, and that have been audited and are secure. What does this result in? Well, it makes it super simple for JavaScript developers, because now with all these on-chain modules, it becomes a simple task for us to create a JavaScript wrapper in React or in other frameworks that allow you to essentially use these smart modules on-chain as if you were using JavaScript modules. In fact, when you experience the Hyperverse software, you will see that it's exactly like that. It's literally NPM for smart contracts. We've made it so easy that you don't need to learn any new programming languages. You work with a familiar paradigm of NPM, you add JavaScript modules, and all the hard work is done for you in terms of integrating with the blockchain smart contracts. It's literally taking JavaScript modules that have connectivity to on-chain smart modules and using them like Lego blocks to build sophisticated applications. You don't need to learn anything new about how to build for Web3. You have all the skills already present. In fact, if you were to make an analysis of the market, our guess is that roughly 20% of the developers in the market will end up writing smart modules because they are familiar with Solidity, Cadence, Rust, TypeScript, etc. But a vast majority of you, approximately 80%, already have the skills. You'll just be building client applications using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And this is the huge unlock that Hyperverse is bringing. We are just getting started. Our mission is to onboard 10 million developers to Web3. We have now created a preview of the Hyperverse. We've got a few modules going, and we have a large number of bounties available for experienced smart module developers to build these smart modules so that the JavaScript developers can start building applications at scale. We are working across multiple blockchains, including Flow, EVM blockchains like Ethereum, Metis, Avalanche, Polygon. We'll be adding Solana and other blockchains. Our goal is to be the dominant way for developers to build for Web3, and we welcome you to join us on this journey. You can start building at Decentology.com and join us in our community on Discord at discord.gg/Decentology. Welcome to the Hyperverse.